Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always joined by James and Callum. How you going, boys?
Not bad.
Tonight we're talking about a movie which we should have talked about months ago, but, you know, life happens.
Yes.
We're going to be discussing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 by James Gunn, but first, we're going to talk a little bit about the writer's strike ending.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention because it was a while ago when we talked about the writer's strike, the WGA strike, and you know, we didn't know how long it was gonna last. I think at the time it was under 100 days when we talked about it last time, and it finally ended a few days ago, and it went for 148 days, which is apparently the second longest strike. But the good news is that they seem to have gotten all or the majority of
what they wanted.
And the big companies agreed to, their terms and increasing the minimum wages and increasing the sizes of writer rooms and, the royalties and residuals.
The AI stuff.
And most interestingly, a lot of the AI, like pretty much all the AI stuff.
Again, that's the power of unions.
Yeah, so...
Join a union, people.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good news. On the one hand, we were kind of like, I hope Hollywood completely collapses and we just have to start again somewhere else kind of thing. But, I mean, this is good for because a lot of people were out of work, and at least this gives writers some...
interesting question.
Some safety for at least till the next strike in 10 years' time.
Almost relating to what we're talking about tonight. Obviously, Guardians 3 is an exception to the Marvel rule, I would say, generally.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that. But would this mean that if writers have more control, writers have more power in their own works, could we get better superhero movies?
No, not at all. Because they're still writers for hire who... the producers say write a superhero movie, and then they come in, and you get other writers in to rewrite, and it's too many cooks, and the producer puts their... So, I mean, we'll still get crap and Hollywood garbage and CGI, just dumb nonsense like we always do. But at least the writer's getting paid. Even if they do a bad job, they still did the job, and they deserve to get paid for it.
It's still work, which they deserve to be paid for.
Yeah. The actors' strike, the SAG-AFTRA strike, is still ongoing, but hopefully the fact that the writers got a pretty good deal means that soon the Actors Guild will get a decent deal as well, and then hopefully, I don't want things to go back to normal because
things very quickly go back to normal.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I was going to say. I don't like when things go back to normal because it's like, well, this happened for a reason. Things should change for the better. But as we saw, especially with COVID in recent years, everything just goes back and everyone just keeps going about their day. And all the horrible, horrible things that happened and all the things we did to overcome it, it's just like, shrug your shoulders. That didn't happen. Move on. So, yeah, I wish there needs to be bigger change in the industry and how movies are made, and I'm hoping that it does change things, but more than likely things will just keep happening the way they're happening. But at least for the time being, for the next few years, the writers will have a good deal, a good safety net, and hopefully the actors will get that as well. And at the very least, hopefully that means we can get Severance Season 2 sooner rather than later. Because that's all I really wanted out of this strike ending. Yeah. I was just like, strike can go forever. I don't care about anything except for that.
Just pay Ben Stiller and company what they want.
Yeah.
Everyone else, just fight the power. Just give it I want this. Yeah.
No, but if you were at Apple TV and like they're like, oh, we'll only do the deal for your show,
then you should strike on prove a point. Yeah.
Like you definitely wouldn't want to. Yeah. No, we'll talk about this. Now I have to talk.
Now you have to talk about it.
Did you guys watch Henry Sugar, the Wes Anderson thing?
No, I haven't had a chance yet.
Okay, we'll talk about it another time. Because this just popped into my head because I forgot to tell you guys. So we talked about Wes Anderson's Asteroid City last week or the week before, I think.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah, week before. And then we were like, oh, he's got that short film coming out on Netflix, The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. And we're like, oh, looking forward to that. And that came out. And I was like, cool. And I watched it. And there's also 2 other short films that came out at the same time. There's The Swan and The Ratcatcher. All
on Netflix.
Yeah, all Wes Anderson, all Roald Dahl adaptations.
And how long are they?
Henry Sugar's like 40 minutes. The Swan is like 20 minutes. And Ratcatcher is 15 to 25 minutes. I can't remember.
You should have just put them together.
Well, no,
that's
I saw an interesting take where someone was like, they should have done it like the Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Yeah.
And just like, here's a movie, in quotation marks, but it's actually...
Or even if it was just an anthology where one fades down and the next one begins. Like,
that's kind of just not splitting your user base, but you...
Yeah, it's like, because I didn't even know they were there. I knew they were playing the ads for Henry Sugar, and we were excited for that. And then the only reason I knew of the other ones is because after Henry Sugar finished, it had the, watch next, and it came up in The Swan. I'm like, what is that?
That's a strange decision.
I clicked it and I watched it, and I was like, oh, cool. And then I looked down after I watched The Swan, and it said the Roald Dahl collection, and it had Henry Sugar, The Swan, and The Ratcatcher. I'm like, what's The Ratcatcher? So then I had to watch that. I'm like, they need to be advertising all the crap they're putting on Netflix. There's too much of it, and when there's good stuff...
He gets buried amongst
I'm just
the quantity.
How did I not know about this? Where the Wes Anderson stands, and I didn't even know about it. Anyway.
That's either... I wonder who makes that decision. Is that Wes Anderson being like, I want them to be separate entries, or is it Netflix being like, let's build them separately to fluff out our kind of release schedule?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know how any of this stuff
could go
works.
either way, yeah.
I don't know. Interesting decisions.
Anyway,
made by Netflix.
we'll talk about those when you watch them. But it just pops into my head.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. We'll do like 2 minutes of non-spoilers, and then we'll go full spoilers because it's on Disney Plus now.
James Gunn fires all cylinders again.
Yeah. So listeners will remember for the last year, we're over superhero movies.
Yeah.
I still like the MCU. I watch all the shows and movies, but we're at a point now where it's like, what's the point of paying $25 to go to the cinema?
Well, most of them kind of suck.
And most of them, they're all the same. Like, they look the same, they sound the same.
Apart from the Eternals.
Yeah, which everyone hated except for us.
You know that meme with Scooby-Doo and they're all looking shocked and there's Fred smiling? That was us watching it too. I'll still never understand why people hate that movie. But we even Thor, Love and Thunder, and everyone's like, worst movie ever.
We talked about this. The 2 people hate are Eternals and Love and Thunder.
Are the really interesting ones.
And the ones we were like, oh, they're not so bad. And the ones we really hated, Black Widow, Captain Marvel, and
Shang-Chi was a bit dodgy.
Shang-Chi was a bit, and even Quantumania, which we hated.
Quantumania sucked.
There are people who would die hard like Quantumania fans.
They're weird.
But there are also people who love Black Widow, and I'm just like, why aren't they as vocal?
Yeah.
Anyway. So this is
James Gunn is the man who holds up the franchise on his tired
The point
shoulders.
is, we've stopped going to the movies to see not just MCU movies, but pretty much all the DC is really the only other one, and they've sucked for the last 10 years, so it's not there's not much else going on. But we're kind of over it. We're waiting for Disney Plus, and then we sort of just watch them when we can, and then we talk about them. With Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I talked about it earlier in the year when it came out at the cinema, because it's Guardians and it's James Gunn, and my other friends were going to go see it. And I was like, okay, this can be the exception. I'll go to the movies to see it. And I'm glad I did, because it was really, really good, and one of the best MCU movies in a long time.
I would have liked to have seen it at the cinemas.
Yeah, and also visually it was worth seeing at the movies. But now it's come out on Disney Plus. And so
Watch it on Disney Plus if you can, because like all the other
Yeah,
Marvel
IMAX
movies that have come out
enhanced,
recently, you have the IMAX enhanced edition. And
yeah,
all
if you go
those.
to versions before you push play, you go to versions. There's extras and then versions.
I was 20
and-
minutes in before I switched.
They should play
It's
you
not-
the IMAX version by default, I would imagine. But again,
They should just give you the option at
Yeah.
the beginning when you push.
Yeah.
But most people, like most people, especially
people don't care,
especially
yeah.
parents with kids, it's just like just push play, and it's like we're the like cinema nerds who are like, I need the correct aspect ratio.
We're the weird people because we watch The Simpsons in original aspect ratio.
No,
instead of their
that's the way
remaster.
you should
no,
watch
I
it.
know, but Disney think we're weird because they didn't want to
yeah,
do it. At
but we
first.
talked
Yeah.
about this when it first
Yeah.
happened. Like when was it, 2 years ago or whatever? And I'm like, people need to stop being afraid of black bars.
Again, because
Because
you
that's
lose so
how-
much visual information
Yeah.
on the remastered. I'm air quoting here.
Do you remember when like
It's not remastered. They just cut footage out.
when DVDs started coming out, and like on the back of the box it would say like, this is letterboxed.
Yeah.
Don't freak out. There's nothing
Yeah,
wrong with
yeah,
your
yeah,
TV, because they had to let
Yeah.
people know. It's like, this is the actual how you.
Do they still have aspect resolution on the back of the boxes anymore?
It does say yeah. But it's less of a
Less of a
be
concern,
warned,
yeah.
dumbass.
Yeah.
But there are still dumb people who
Yeah.
are like, why is this movie? You know, a lot of the classic Disney animated movies, like, you know, Snow White and Pinocchio, they're 4:3, and so it's got the black bars on the side. It's perfectly normal. That's how you're supposed to
Yeah.
watch it. That's the way the movie was made. But Disney, I don't know exactly why. I'd wonder if it's like for the kids, but there's an option on some of their Blu-rays where you can fill in the black bars with like colorful designs, so it looks like it's like a frame, and I don't know if that's so kids don't get confused that there's a.
Yeah, I would
Or is
imagine
it-
it's just for kids.
Fuck,
I'd
it's very
say.
strange.
Yeah. I'd say it's for kids.
But this is my point: is even if you're listening to the show, you're somewhat interested in movies, TV shows, whatever. So this is not addressed to you, basically. But most normies need to have at least a bit of. We talked
what
about it with media literacy. Remember when we talked about that? This is just everyday people who aren't movie buffs or whatever. They still need to understand how to watch
Yeah,
things,
I had a thought.
because people complain about dumb stuff that they don't understand.
I had a thought. It could be because of tablets and phones.
Oh.
And a TV, black bar is not scary. On a phone or a tablet, black bars, is my screen dead?
Yeah.
You know, like there's other issues, especially with OLED screens. There's just as black as the rest of your phone's bezel or whatever. And it's like,
And they're trying to pinch.
and they're trying to zoom in. Why isn't it full screen?
Yeah, yeah.
Could be that issue too.
Yeah. But see, this is, I mean,
You know what it could be? So attention.
Don't watch
span-
movies on your phone.
just, one, don't watch it. Two, teach your kids about movies.
Attention spans are so bad now.
and aspect ratios. When they're little.
Yeah.
Even my attention span's not what it was a few years ago. I think everyone, and we talk about this with our friend of the show, Jake, producer of the show, Jake. Attention spans are bad now. They're just fucking, and even people like me, like I'm a Twitter fiend. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah, but
sorry,
you
X.
have a problem.
Yeah,
No,
I
it's still Twitter. We're
I-
not playing
no, but-
Elon's
so,
game.
You know the like the blackness of the bars, right? It's a lack of visual information. So you might be you're
Yeah.
watching the film, but you're bored. There's a party that's bored
You need a
because of the blackness.
pack.
So
Yeah.
you
Something
need
to
you
look
need
at.
information for your I don't want to use the word ADHD, but it's kind of like that. Where it's like no, I need information to keep me preoccupied. You know what I mean?
Well,
That
I
could
caught
be it.
I caught friend of the show Alan the other day, and he was watching two things at once.
Yeah, but we've talked about before where.
Because he's watching something, but he needs something else to pay attention to when he gets boring. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
see,
mate,
but I'm
slow
not like,
it
then
down.
don't watch it.
Yeah,
if it's
no.
boring, like.
No, again, but it's that need for
Constant
stimulation.
stimulation.
Engagement. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's a big problem, which not just for young people, but for old people too, of like not being able to just sit and watch a movie and having to play on their phone or having to do something
This
else.
is like maybe a fun conversation for another week. But
Oh, yeah, we've gone completely off track.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Sorry,
we're,
James.
We're
Gunn.
enjoying
We'll get
ourselves.
back-
It's
yeah,
fine.
we'll get back
I
to
want to
it.
have this conversation another week because it also relates to a really interesting kind of idea and conversation I had. It's about we would do fine. How would you do without the internet? Maybe that's something else we can go for
Like
another week.
you as in the royal you, or me specifically?
Everyone.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but it relates into an entertainment medium very
Yeah.
interestingly. It's
Yeah.
an interesting
As long
conversation.
As long as I can keep my Blu-rays, I'm fine.
Yeah,
that's-
we're okay.
I'm
Yeah.
actually thinking of cancelling all my subscriptions and just like going through my Blu-rays that I haven't even opened
Yeah.
yet. A lot
Man,
of them I haven't.
I've been doing it for ages.
Yeah.
I'm still plugging
No,
away.
yeah, but yeah, like because that's what I love doing. But then I also love catching up on what's on streaming. But I'm also like,
Yeah.
But
But it's an
anyway.
interesting conversation for another week.
yeah.
We'll rein it back in.
All right. So what were we talking about?
We're
James?
talking about James Gunn.
Speaking of people who don't use the internet, Star Wars.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Yeah, it's on Disney Plus now, so it's and if you're like us and are a bit have got the superhero fatigue, got the MCU fatigue,
The MCU blues.
yeah, give like Guardians is the exception you need to watch.
Watch the holiday special first, please.
Yeah, so obviously you have to see the first two Guardians movies, then Infinity War and Endgame obviously are important. And I guess Thor: Love and Thunder, but they're only in the beginning.
Yeah,
You don't really have to watch it.
Nah.
But yeah, the the holiday special on Disney Plus.
So much fun.
It only it's under an hour, I
it's
think.
like 30, 40 minutes.
Nah, it's like 45. I
40,
think.
Yeah,
55.
45,
Yeah. Watch that first
So
because it directly ties into some stuff they talk
Pretty
about in the
directly,
movie.
yeah.
There's
There's a lot of character stuff in there that you will miss if you don't. You won't miss it, but it
Yeah.
won't be explained.
They
to
mention
you.
stuff in the movie that you would miss if you didn't watch it. Yeah, so definitely this movie is 100% worth watching. It's the best MCU movie in a while. It's a genuinely good movie on its own without the MCU.
Yeah.
And
And it's James Gunn's last film for Marvel.
what a send-off.
Yeah.
And now he's going to DC and hopefully he can bring that magic. And we'll talk about that later. But yeah, Guardians 3.
His first movie should have been DC like zombies or something. In a way, like going to bring it back from the dead.
Yeah.
It's a
Like
bad
a
joke, bad
meta.
joke.
Yeah, like a
bad
real
joke.
meta. Yeah, but Guardians 3 is 100% worth watching. It is really good, and the trilogy, the Guardians trilogy, is the best Marvel trilogy.
100%.
And you can take it pretty much, as you said, on its own with maybe Endgame and Infinity War.
Yeah, you kind of need that because of Gamora, and the the holiday special. But other than that, yeah, the large MCU doesn't really matter, and that's always been the good thing about Guardians is they're kind of their own standalone movies.
Yeah.
But Guardians 1, 2, and 3 is the best Marvel trilogy, MCU trilogy, hands down.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is because James Gunn wrote and directed all three of them, and he did the holiday special as well. And he's just...
And he has enough chutzpah to be able to fight the studio.
Well, now he does, yeah,
Yeah.
because he's making them a lot of money, and he's now the
funny.
head honcho over at DC. So
It's funny, right? Because before the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie came out, like the team itself, among comic book nerds, they've always been known.
but they were like, they weren't
They were like
A-list.
C grade. They were like C grade, yeah. Like you knew people who read a lot of comics knew about them.
Yeah.
But they weren't they weren't the Fantastic Four. You know what I mean? I would say if you grew up with the MCU,
Yeah.
Guardians is Fantastic Four level. You know what I mean?
Oh, if you're a comic book nerd,
No, I mean,
oh,
like,
just if you watch the movies.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
yeah, it's like he turned them from being a C-list, kind of odd squad, if you will,
just for comic nerds to everyone now knows who
to
the
being
Guardians
like
are.
one of the biggest superhero teams in the world.
Yeah.
Like what magic? Like his this I mean his whole not just this film, but not, like the whole trilogy as a whole.
Yeah.
Proves that his understanding of character, the ability to
He's
bring
also-
story threads out of characters who you might not really
Yeah.
think you
All-
can get a lot out of them.
All the Guardians movies have like strong character moments, and not only are they funny, but they have
Like,
like
heart-wrenching
meaningful relationships and character growth. But I think also it helps that James Gunn is a comic book fan, and
Yeah.
and this is why DC, we talked about when he took over DC, or like he's like the good guy for that. one, because he clearly knows how to make a superhero movie, but two, it's because he likes comic books.
I
and
think
he's just
like he has a reverence for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and I'm not, Kevin Feige obviously does too, and I'm sure everyone does who handles those properties, because you kind of have to. But it's like James Gunn seems to really, he looked at the Guardians and he thought, what can we do with these people to make the audience care about them? So, but in such a way whereas that caring carries through the whole trilogy. So you get this epic finale where they do manage to pay off these story threads. And, I got teary at one point. I'm a grown-ass man.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean?
Volume 3... you'll feel all the emotions.
Yeah, and that's
you'll be laughing your ass off, and then you'll be crying like a baby.
Yeah, I actually had that conversation with someone at work today.
Yeah,
and he said the exact same thing. He's
100%.
like, it has you laughing, it has you crying, it has you, excited or whatever. And like only James Gunn, you know what I mean?
And you can relate to Peter because he's really depressed.
Well, that's just a millennial experience, I think.
Yeah, that's it. He struggles like the rest of us.
Like even minor characters like Cosmo.
He's a millennial. It transcends environment.
Would he be Gen X?
No, he would be Gen X, yeah.
He might be a cusper, though. Because he's like
Maybe.
1980 or whatever.
He would be very late Gen X, I suppose.
Yeah.
Late Gen X, very
really early millennial or late Gen X. I'm going to look that up.
But my point is, like, what an epic finale! He's a genius. You know what I mean? And whether it was we'll see with the DC whether it was just a one-off luck where he happened to get a property.
I think the fact that all three movies were great, and the fact that even the Suicide Squad he did for DC, which wasn't as good, but it's still like
and he turned
better than
he turned Peacemaker into a again.
Oh, and the Peacemaker show apparently is really good.
A lesser known character, right? Like your average DC person isn't necessarily going to know Peacemaker. Yeah. He turned Peacemaker into like a household name.
Yeah, but it's like it's not just like turning a smaller, lesser known character into a better known character. It's just like having, like you said, reverence,
finding ways to make them relevant.
Yeah, and even now he's going to do Superman, and it's just like Superman's probably the most famous superhero of all time, and so he doesn't have to do any work to make him more well known. Yeah, but we know he can do a good job in making a interesting character movie, and also a good action movie, a good sci-fi movie. Yeah, yeah. So I think James Gunn is to be commended for what he's done in the framework of the MCU, which has gotten very restrictive and stale. Yeah. And, Volume 3 especially is, one, a send-off for him being at the MCU now that he's moved over to DC, and two, a send-off for the Guardians and the characters in this world. Yeah. And not a complete goodbye, but a farewell for this moment, where kind of they're taking a back seat, and, maybe one day we'll see them again kind of thing. But this is a good finale, and a really emotional roller coaster of a movie. Yeah. And of course it's Guardians, so the soundtrack is dope. Yeah. I mean, that's without saying. Also, it's 2.5 hours, which isn't unusual for superhero movies these days. They're all long, especially MCU, gotten a lot long. But this movie, every second of it is gold. Yeah. Like, at no point is it boring. At no point does it drag. Yeah. It's really funny. It's really emotionally impactful. Has some really cool action scenes. Some cool practical stuff. A lot of CGI, but still interesting stuff going on. Yeah.
There was no CG that made me, Yeah. There was a few bits that I was like,
Yeah,
but then it wasn't as bad as, Black Widow or as bad as Shang-Chi. There was nothing that made me uncomfortable.
Yeah. Peter Quill in the MCU was born in 1980. So and that's the last year for Gen X. So 1981. From 1981, you're a millennial.
Yeah, so he's he's right on the cusp.
Yeah, right on the cusp.
Yeah. He's one of those people who complain about millennials. A lot of people...
He wouldn't complain about millennials.
No. Actually, I think he'd be pretty cool. But a lot of people complain about millennials are actually millennials themselves because they don't know what that means.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like people don't know what boomer means. A lot of people think when they say millennials, what they actually mean is Gen Z.
It's because they probably started off.
The millennials stay quiet because they've already been defeated by society.
That's what I was going to say.
We're the new Gen X. It's like we've given up. It's up to Gen Z.
We just turned into wage slaves, and then the ones causing the problems are Gen Z now.
Yeah. Anyway, watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. even if you haven't seen any of the other MCU recent ones, and you're kind of put off by it, definitely worth checking out. If you've got Disney Plus, checking out Guardians 1 to the Infinity War Endgame, and then the Christmas Guardians Holiday Special, and then Guardians 3. Definitely that package. Mwah.
Yeah.
That's honestly like the whole trilogy is great, but I think the volume 3, excuse me, is such a great film. I enjoyed every second of it. I was saying to a guy at work, I would love a Criterion box set of the trilogy. And it'll never happen, obviously.
No. But I mean, they might. I mean, they're not. I think we talked about Disney not releasing physical media in Australia anymore.
I'd love a boutique collection.
You know in America, they're still releasing the stuff on 4K. So hopefully they'll a 4K trilogy set. I'm pretty sure there's a set of Iron Man, a set of Captain America, a set of Thor. So
they should.
But yeah, this is easily the best trilogy,
and has a dog
and
Cosmo
also has it.
Yeah, which we'll get to later. I thought that
good
Cosmo.
dog.
No.
We'll get to that. Anyway, so check it out if you haven't. We'll go into spoilers now.
Yep, let's hit the ground.
Do we need to do a break first?
Nah.
All right. So, spoiler warning for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and I guess some other MCU stuff, but not really anything.
Just general MCU spoiler alert, and a specific Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 spoiler warning.
There's some stuff happens in this movie, so if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. 100% worth seeing. And that's coming from us who are kind of a bit iffy on the franchise now. Spoiler warning. Guardians 3 is like Rocket's movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It centers around him a lot of the time. When he gets injured at the beginning, all the other characters have to... Like, the plot is like...
It's how to save Rocket.
How to save him. But meanwhile, you get flashbacks to Rocket's origin and his past.
Also, I guess just as a general warning for this movie, if it makes you uncomfortable, there's a bit of animal cruelty, animal abuse theme in this movie. So just be aware.
It's funny. I said to Nathan when I was watching this film, because I saw it yesterday for the first time. And
I rewatched it last night again.
I said to Nathan, if you're like a kid watching this film, I'm like, it's interesting because it
gets very dark.
It's such a mature film. Because if the original came out in 2014, I guess that the audience, if you will, who was like the prime age for that movie, would have grown up with the franchise.
This is not a children's movie.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like Guardians are children friendly because the toys and everyone knows who Peter Quill is. You know what I mean? But it's like, this is a sad film, and it's like there's themes of like great sad themes in this film.
Torture and animal experimentation.
It'll be emotionally traumatic for some children. You know what I mean?
100%. I mean,
it was emotionally traumatic for me, and I'm a grown-ass man.
I remember seeing it when I saw it at the cinema for the first time, and being like, we've talked about every movie now has to be PG-13. Every superhero movie is PG-13 because it's that safe area of like it's a bit edgier than a kids movie, but really it's just for everyone. It's kind of bland.
Well, James Gunn shook his head no.
Yeah, and James Gunn was like, yes, this is PG-13, but I'm going to push it in a few areas. And there's a couple of moments where I was like, oh, that is pushing.
That is a little bit,
not that I'm complaining, but, especially at the end when the bad guy gets his face ripped off. Yeah. And it's just like a skull with like muscles and blood. Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. But Rocket's backstory is really tragic, and his friends, his adoptive family in the experimental
his other
laboratory.
Animal pals.
Yeah. And we always complain about CGI on the show, especially me. I hate CGI. This is a good example of a movie where the CGI characters you care about them. Yeah. So even though they look like CGI characters, it's good CGI, quote unquote. But they're still CGI. It's like you're not fooling no one. They look kind of rubbery and shiny.
Just because he knows how to tell such a great story.
But it's just like you get invested in them, and you start to like
it's funny. It's
connect with them. And
it's because you already have that connection with Rocket. You know what I mean?
Maybe,
so
yeah.
It's like that connection that Rocket has with his friends works because you already care about Rocket and his story before watching the movie. You know what I mean?
I guess Rocket himself, even in the first two movies, is like he's a CGI character. He looks like a CGI character, but he's I think he's fun to watch. And
James Gunn's very lucky that his characters are so loved because it enhances the viewing experience of everyone who has.
But I think he's the reason they're loved.
Yeah, I know.
In the first place, yeah.
But it makes him able to do so much more than if they were just like, oh look, here's Carol Danvers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean
because I'm watching this film and I felt kind of sad because I'm like, is this the last time I get to have this adventure with the Guardians of the Galaxy? Possibly. You know what I mean? It's like the end of Lord of the Rings. It's like I want to start it again. You know what I mean? Like it's so fun.
The fact that you bring up Lord of the Rings, I think we talked about this when we talked about Lord of the Rings. Like Gollum is a good example of a 20-year-old CGI character who looks like 20-year-old CGI. Like it's good, but he's aged. But you believe because of the performance.
You suspend the disbelief.
But it's also the filmmaking and the writing and like the way he interacts with the environment and Sam and Frodo. And it's just like you believe he's a real creature. And it's the same in this movie where there's CGI creatures, especially Rocket and, you know, his friends. Was it Teefs, Floor, and Lila? Yeah. And you kind of get invested in their journey and, you know, you hope they escape and whatever. And you feel sorry for them and whatever. And that's what's really important. It elevates it. Other than, these are just ugly CGI
because it's not just about Rocket, you know what I mean? It's not just Rocket escaping from prison, which would still be a tragic story. But it's like, well, no, it's not just Rocket. It's how Rocket came to learn to love, if you will, in quotation marks.
And why he's so bitter all the time.
Why he resents the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that whole element where it's like you get to see him as a fresh, you know, hopeful animal. And then, you know, you get that...
As a smarty pants.
Yeah, smarty pants.
Yeah, it's like
89P13, is that the code?
Something like that, yeah. P13,
anyway, and then the harsh break to reality.
But, yeah. But I just like those moments. I think are what really makes the movie emotionally kind of powerful and very sad.
Yeah, tragic. Yeah.
But also, like, the movie's really funny as well. Which
it has a dog?
Has a doggo.
Oh, man. So, it's so funny, right? Because I knew Cosmo was in it, but I didn't know... I've heard people talk about it.
Yeah.
Weird. Anyway, I laughed my ass off at the poker scene where she's and you called me a bad dog.
Yeah. It's like, just take it back, Kraglin. He's like, no.
See, I would have preferred it to just always say no, and then it's like a thing that gets resolved years down the line. You know what I mean? Like an ongoing joke.
No, but see, that's too traumatic for the dog.
Yeah, that's just... Because, like, when he says you're a bad dog, and she's like, don't you say that to me. He's like, take it back. And it's like, you know... like
that dog's feeling it
deep
down.
It's just like, you don't say that to any dog. Like, that's so...
Especially when the dog is, in fact, the bestest dog.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Cosmo is amazing.
Super intelligent and, like, awesome
and powerful. Yeah.
And
just... good-natured, true, like, pure.
Yeah.
Much like Adam Warlock.
Calling him a bad dog.
No. I have a bad dog, so I know what it's like. He shit on the floor today. On the rug, not on the
rug. Oh no.
Yeah, not on the floorboards or the tiles.
Cosmo would never do that.
Yeah, so other new interesting characters in this movie. Adam Warlock.
Oh, yeah. So, before, like, his cocoon was introduced in the first Guardians, I think, like, almost 10 years ago.
So weird.
And ever since then, I was like, when's he going to show up?
Yeah.
And we thought he was going to show up in Volume 2, and he didn't. And it's like, is he going to show up in one of the Avengers movies? And it was just like, because he's one of the coolest, most powerful... cosmic Marvel characters in the comic books, and I was like really excited to see him, and finally, like, we knew who was in this movie, played by our boy Will Poulter, who if you go all the way back,
Alan calls him eyebrows.
Yeah, but if you go all the way back to episode 1 of the Tuesday review, we talk about Will Poulter and like how awesome
yes, because he's in the
Bandersnatch.
Yeah.
He's awesome. Please come on the show, Will. But we knew he was playing him, and then the movie came out. I saw the movie, and he's played more as like a comedic, jokey character.
Yeah.
And I ain't even mad because it's funny.
Yeah. There's also enough growth that I feel like he'll mature
I think
over
it's like,
coming films.
It's also, like the year 0, if you will, of Adam Warlock.
Because it's like he's supposed to be this perfect warrior, but they released him out of his cocoon too early. And so he's still he's a grown man, but he still acts like a child.
Yeah.
And he's...
I mean... Don't we all?
Well, yeah, but we don't have superpowers, so
just
it's a bit less dangerous.
As well, yeah.
There's less at stake when I throw a tantrum or misunderstand an instruction. I don't kill anyone by accident. And so he's because he's so powerful. Yeah, if he misunderstands an instruction or something, like people can get hurt. But yeah, I think it also helps that he looks cool and his action scenes are cool. And he gets like his own redemption arc at the end and then kind of becomes part of the new Guardians at the end of the film, which Rocket becomes the new leader of the Guardians. Yeah. So again, this is Rocket's...
You could argue he's always been at least co-captain.
Yeah,
I think there's a joke about that in the first movie, isn't there? Oh no, in Infinity War, where Thor is like clearly the rabbit is the captain or something. Yeah. But Adam Warlock was cool. The action scenes in this movie are really cool. They're very clear. There's no shaky cam garbage. There's no quick cuts. There is a lot of CGI, but it's not brown and ugly.
It's also
and grey.
more understandable. It's like it's space, it's cosmic. I'm like, I can understand it more than say Miss Marvel or other movies, or Black Widow, where it's just like it's unnecessary.
Yeah, but the like
no, it's still tastefully
it's
done,
not just the use. It's not just the use of CGI. It's like the fact that it's shot well and we can see, and the choreography is good. There's that hallway fight near the end where it's like all in one take, and they're like all of them together are like going under and like shooting. And it's awesome. And it's like very clear what's going on.
And it's like even some of the bigger CGI shots it's like well lit. You can actually see stuff.
Yeah.
Like James Gunn wasn't afraid to show the color in the big CGI scenes. Whereas in some movies, not just MCU movies, like all CGI heavy movies, they often use darker colors and dimly lit. So brown you don't see how much it sucks.
Yeah, or like the end of Shang-Chi, whereas it's like that grey, smoky dragon fight, where it's like,
just
what
obscure
is
it. So
it's like this dragon came out of nowhere. What are we watching? And
it's like CGI, works in my opinion. Where obviously it has to be well done, but when you use lots of color, you have to make it look vibrant, make it pop.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would have liked more practical effects, but. Yeah. I think even I remember when the first Guardians came out, and I said, as someone who doesn't like CGI, I like the interesting uses of it in the Guardians movies. Like, there's a scene in the first movie where it's like a spaceship battle, and one of the characters is in a like ship that doesn't have any weapons, but it's got two like grabby arms, robot arms, and so he smashes it into one of the enemy spaceships. And then he uses the grabby arms to use the weapons of the...
Oh, that's cool.
And so he's like pushing the other... The crashed frame of the other spaceship and then using those. I'm like, this is cool. And also, visually, you can understand what's going on. The camera's not shaking. There's no unnecessary lens flare. It's not grey and brown and flat and ugly and fake grey CGI smoke everywhere. Yeah. You can tell what's going on. And Volume 3 is a good example of that, where yes, it's CGI. I'm not really a fan of it, but it looks cool. Like the Orgo Corp, that big space
super
station.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, this is cool. This is interesting, and there's a spaceship dogfight at the end. I'm like, okay, cool.
Shout out to our boy Stallone.
Yeah, Stallone comes back.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the other thing as well. It's like there is a lot of good practical effects in this movie. And probably the most notable is when they go to Counter-Earth and there's all those townspeople who are like animal people.
Yeah.
And it's all like classic, like looks like 80s kind of like creature makeup. Like everyone's made up. And that's the, like for me, like,
I mean, like, I'm sorry,
the set design for that section was great too. Like seeing the photos of the families and all that, and just like it was awesome. And like the father in that house scene was so like, he's like, I don't want to.
Drax keeps trying to put his feet up on the couch.
Like, I'm sorry, but I know people are used to CG, but it's like, surely if you can do it well, you put a person in a suit. You know what I mean? It's
but
like how much
awesome.
time and exactly because you can adjust the light. You can. It's more easy to capture in film. Like it's just it feels tangible. Practical just works better. It feels better because it's tangible.
100%.
It's not like an actor trying to act with something he can't see.
No,
you put a guy in a suit and it's gonna feel better.
Yeah, it just and looks better. It feels better, and it was just it's awesome that. Even though there is a lot of other CGI creatures before and after that,
you can tell he tried where he could.
I think that scene specifically, he was like, "I'm gonna go like full Planet of the Apes. Like everyone's gonna be walking around, but they're gonna be like Island of Dr. Moreau, like our animal people." I wrote it down because it was so impressive that on the trivia that this film sets the record for the most makeup appliances used in a single film.
Oh wow!
Having more than 23,000 prosthetics used across more than 1,000 actors.
Jeez, that's awesome.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
I don't want to know about how many digital effects shots you have.
I don't want to know about how many tennis balls are applied to someone's head.
How many ping pong balls, morph suits you had to. This is what I want to hear. When I hear this is why we're Nolan simps, because when
just
Nolan,
crash the plane.
When Nolan makes a movie, you hear it's like, oh no, we didn't use any visual effects in this movie, and it's just like, wait, how can that be? It's 2023. That's what I like to hear. Not that you can't use visual effects, but it's getting way out of hand. And even in Guardians, where there is a lot of CGI, and I'm still not 100% on it, at least it's used well.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of moments where physical sets are built, costumes are made, and you do get a sense of the tangible a lot of the time as well. And I think James Gunn is he maybe because it's the third movie and the other movies that were successful, and he's got a lot of pull now.
It's definitely a case of
a lot of the other MCU movies could have had this level of care put in, and they didn't.
It's definitely a case of him being the big dog.
Probably.
And he's like, I'm doing it my way, leave me alone. And they're just like, yes, sir.
But they need to do that for all the movies.
Yeah.
Like,
again, it's that kind of thing where they're not going to take a risk, because it's Marvel's minimum level quality studio. Like,
yeah, but it's not even a risk because it's like,
people are going to see it anyway.
Yeah, it's like it's Marvel. You've already made the money. Yeah. Like you have Disney. You have more money than God.
You already have your base too.
Yeah, you already
you don't have to worry.
You already have your dedicated fans who are going to go see it anyway.
You don't have to worry about bums and seats.
Yeah, actually try to make a good movie and don't just slap it on because it's on your release schedule.
Exactly, 100%.
Like, oh, we said Black Widow's coming out. I guess we got to.
Watching this movie it just makes me more excited for DC under James Gunn, because it's like now that he's 100%. There from he's there from day one. Now he's like he gets to build the future. Yeah. In a way, obviously,
literally his job.
We talked about like his release schedule of the new stuff to DC that's coming out, and it's just like, okay, like this is a guy who we can trust,
having gone through the system and the process himself of making movies,
and also
like this.
Kind of he's navigated the MCU, so he knows how that works.
Exactly.
So he can avoid
the pitfalls that DC has kind of fell in before.
Yeah, and he can take the good stuff from the MCU, and he can avoid the bad stuff for the MCU.
And like I'm sure him and Kevin Feige have got probably a good relationship, right? I'm sure he can call Kev and be like, look, what should I do in this situation? What should I... He's got those interpersonal relationships.
Yeah, that bullcrap where he got fired had nothing to do with Kevin Feige or like any of the MCU
I'm
people.
Sure,
so I don't think there's any ill will.
But I'm sure, that's what I mean, is that's a good thing potentially where he can reach out and be like, what would you do in this situation? As like a friend, obviously... I wouldn't say it's competition because it's like they can always just release movies around each other. They don't have to compete. This is a holiday film.
Yeah, see, that's the way I look at it too, because I'm like, DC and Marvel offer very different things to consumers. Like, we've talked about it off air many times. Like, DC's good for your single stories, like, like your Batman, Gotham by Gaslight,
graphic novel,
that sort of stuff, where Marvel's good for the long-running thing, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't consider them in direct competition, even if your everyday consumer would consider them competing.
I mean, in terms of just the movies alone, like, I think the DC for the last 10 years was definitely trying to compete with MCU and trying to replicate the MCU and failing miserably.
Yeah.
And I think what James Gunn is trying to do is make things a bit different, a bit more standalone.
Yeah, which is where they shine.
Which is where they what I've been saying for 10 years. I mean, ever since Man of Steel came out, I'm like, don't try to copy the MCU. You're gonna fail, and try to do more standalone things.
Yeah.
And the best DC stuff so far has been the more standalone-ish stuff.
I mean, especially look, my big hope is, as someone with the Marvel fatigue, is that maybe James Gunn going to DC. And maybe putting a bit of pressure on Marvel will maybe let them take some more time and maybe not release a movie every 3-6 months,
and
whatever
7
it is.
TV shows that you all have to watch.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? Just take a minute. All right, the consumers are going to get overloaded if they have both Marvel and DC throwing crap at them every couple months.
You know how earlier we were just talking about like people need that hit of like the screen, in the interface or whatever,
the engagement.
Yeah, I think. Like, the MCU has dug themselves into a hole where it's just like, you got to have constant content coming out to keep people engaged. And we've talked about the streaming service problem where it's just like, just cram, just churn shit out. Doesn't matter, or the quality or whatever. So,
but again, in a friendly competition in a way, if DC can release high quality products, you know what? Maybe not as often as Marvel, but if they're consistently better... and they get consistently better, we'll say, engagement, then maybe Marvel will have to listen.
Yeah, well, I can imagine an analyst in Disney being like, what
obviously, no, quantity is still probably
I think at
king.
the end of the day, it just comes down to the numbers. We've talked about how filmmaking has gone complete to the commerce side and the artistic side is left behind. I don't think...
It's interesting to see how it's going to play out.
I still, as much as I love the Guardians movies and certain MCU movies and certain newer superhero movies, the best superhero movies are still from before the MCU. Are still the old school ones.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about before, the landscape has changed, the cinematic landscape has changed, the way movies are made and accessed and the way content is digested or the way people watch things has changed so much. That I truly don't. Even though I'm looking forward to James Gunn's DC sort of universe.
Let's just hope he's gunning for it.
I'm sure he is. God. Yeah, he's got the guns. Got the big guns. But yeah. What else?
I like the way the movie kind of ties up things in a neat little bow.
Yeah, but still leaves it open.
Yeah.
You get that little...
I kind of like the fact that they don't explain how the Guardians acquired Nowhere. You know what I mean? It gives...
It was at the Infinity War. Didn't Thanos destroyed it?
They acquired it between movies from the collector. James Gunn addressed it on Twitter. Because someone asked him, they're like, did I miss something? And he's just like, oh, don't worry about it. The Guardians occasionally do mercenary work, and they bought it off the collector. Blah blah blah.
I do like that about the Guardians as well. It's like their lives aren't just captured on camera.
Well, no,
it's
that's
like
what
stuff that happens.
That's what I was about to say. Like, it gives the universe a lived-in feel, which, like, because I like the idea that, like, the Guardians aren't stopping just because James Gunn called cut at the end of Guardians 2. You know what I mean? Like, stuff happened.
Yeah.
And like, I like that you start the holiday special in my case. And it's like, oh, check it out. It's Nowhere, and there's a dog.
Yeah.
And I'm like, awesome.
Yeah. Well, the dog, they find it. The collector has Cosmo in the background of like the first movie, so it's like it's not like it's coming out of nowhere.
Oh yeah,
but it's just not directly.
It was an Easter egg, which now it's a more of a fleshed out character.
Yeah, but
even Howard the Duck was at the end, like a Easter egg at the end of the end credits of the first movie, and now he's like in he's playing cards with them on Nowhere. So it's like it's always an evolving thing without you having to stop and explain who Howard the Duck is. And
no, I know. I'm just, it's such a great
it gives the world more life. Yeah. I guess we should talk about the High Evolutionary because he's one reason this movie's awesome is because he's an awesome villain.
I like the character. I don't like the name.
Why not?
It's because it's a very
it's a comic booky.
Yeah, it's like a very 70s sci-fi
it's
name.
Like the Collector and
I guess it's more of a title.
Yeah, but that's what he is. That's what he does. He's awesome, and I like how he's not trying to conquer the universe or whatever. He's trying to create the perfect
the struggles of being a perfectionist.
Yeah, one of the things I like about him is he's not an evil villain.
He's just obsessed.
Yeah, he's evil in the sense of the comic book sense of the word, but he's not Galacticus. He's not.
He doesn't.
Yeah, he's not even.
I question how far he would go if he got his perfect utopia, right? So would he try and destroy everything else? I think the problem
is
the goalposts are always going to be shifting.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing is you can never achieve true perfection.
Even if he did, I feel like then he'll be like, okay, but now everything else needs to die.
Exactly. And that's the thing is it's like his obsession is what fuels his madness.
Yeah.
And even Rocket says at the end, like you don't want things to be perfect, you just hate things the way they are.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Like, it's just like, he's never going to be able to make... And things that are perfect for him, not necessarily perfect for everyone else.
Yeah.
So, it's just... Yeah. But it's an interesting villain, and one of the reasons the movie's good is because a lot of the bad superhero movies, so the villain's a real snooze fest, or just a CGI blob.
Yeah.
Whereas the actor who plays High Evolutionary is really good, and his like powers and all that are really cool, and his obsession with perfection, and his relationship to Rocket's past is all really cool. And when they beat him down at the end, that's so cool. When they all come in the room and they're like beating him up, and then his face falls off. Yeah, it's awesome.
The only issue I have. And this is a minor nitpick. It's just, I just feel like it's something that's almost... So, there's a scene where he's explaining his motivations. And he goes, there is no God. I'm like...
So I had to take his place or something like that.
And I was like, it's like 10 minutes before... he's attacking Nowhere, and he's like, "Let's kill, attack that dead god's head or whatever."
Yeah.
I'm like, man, like it's not even 20 minutes apart in the script.
I unless they let it slide because they're like, what he means is there's celestials who are gods, but there is no one.
There's no creating.
There's no Nicolas Cage. There's no one true god. It just felt lazy.
That's all. It's like the only line in the movie that felt lazy.
Yeah,
because it's like it reminds me of the Avengers where Captain America says to Thor, it's like, you're not a real god or whatever. And I'm like, man, come on. Like, at this stage in the MCU, it's like, there's the Celestials, you've got Ego, you've got the Asgardian gods.
Yeah. You've got the Watcher, but no one really knows about him. So.
But you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, there's, obviously there's no Abrahamic god.
I think that's what he meant. He's like, there's no one god who has created everything, and so I have to take his place. But there are little g gods who are big celestial, like Eternals, cosmic beings and whatever, interdimensional beings. So they could have just written it like a bit differently. Yeah,
that was my only nitpick of the whole film. And Cosmo is not a good dog.
But at the end, Kraglin finally learns to use the whistle.
Kraglin knows she's a bad
arrow.
dog. He just said that to placate her.
Nah. Don't say that.
That'll come back in future movies.
Don't you put that evil on Mike, don't you?
Yeah, that's it. I'm going to delete this from the podcast.
Do we have to go off air?
I think we do.
All right.
The live portion of the show will be ending.
Yeah, we'll just do another 10 minutes.
The podcast will continue.
Wrap things up
for our dedicated listeners. We'll be right back after this. You're back on the Tuesday review, finishing off our discussion on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a couple other things before we wrap up. The fight scene where Groot and Star-Lord confront the High Evolutionary on his ship, and then Groot has all the guns hidden.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
They're spinning around. There's a lot of death fake outs. Drax gets shot slow motion several times when they're escaping Orgocorp, and I'm like, oh, they're gonna kill off Drax. And then at the end,
because we know Batista wants out.
Yeah, and it's this is the last one. They're gonna kill everyone off. And Rocket's pretty close there for a while.
That scene, I'm not gonna no spoilers, but
we're in spoiler territory.
Cool. That scene in the white death space.
Yeah,
where he's like,
"Can I come with you?" And she's like, "Yes."
And I was like, "God damn it, my heartstrings, man!" Yeah. I was like, "Don't do this to me, please."
And then she's like, "But not yet." And I was like, "Oh." Yeah, but then also when Peter Star-Lord, he's gets sucked into the vacuum of space.
And he's
not cheeks. Yeah, not only does he get all frozen and cold in space, but he's
his face blows up a bit. Yeah,
decompresses or compresses or whatever the word is, puffs all up.
It's funny, right? Because I said to Nathan, I'm like, would that have? Because I'm watching
That's
it happen.
also pretty graphic as well.
I'm watching it and I'm like, he's half an Eternal or whatever. He's Ego's son, not an Eternal.
But I think he gave up that power when he defeated Ego in the second movie.
Oh, because I haven't seen the second one in a while.
Yeah, I think part of him defeating Ego is that he's linked to that power.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, because I said to Nathan, I'm like, well, it wouldn't affect him anyway. And then
although it is quite an extreme injury, I was just like, geez, I know they have the healing technology, but I was like,
also,
wow.
He has plot armor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who knows? I mean, Chris Pratt could have been like, hey, can I get killed off? Or James Gunn could have gone to Chris Pratt and said, I'm going to kill you off. Again, because of the MCU, there probably are some, but there's that end credit stinger where he goes back to Earth and it's the Star-Lord will return.
It's funny, right? So
that was a funny scene.
No, there was an article.
He's eating cereal with his grandpa. He's like, I could mow the lawn, but...
There was a thread, not an article, there was a thread I saw on Twitter talking about this. Apparently, originally, he wasn't supposed to go back to Earth until Guardians 3. But It
is Guardians 3.
No, yeah, I know. But he goes back to Earth... in the Avengers movies. And someone was like, James Gunn probably saw that and tried to bite his tongue. Yeah. And then we're supposed to forget about it until Guardians 3 where he has this really meaningful return. But he's actually been back already. It's one of those situations with MCU directors where you have to kind of turn a blind eye.
It's a problem with MCU. But I think it's also when he went back in... Was it Infinity?
Context is important.
Yeah.
He's not there for a family reunion.
It would have been after... No, he got snapped, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Wait, when did he go back? I can't remember now.
He went back briefly, I think.
I guess when they got unsnapped?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't...
But he didn't stick around.
It wasn't like a family visit.
Yeah. And then who gave him the Zune?
Can't
remember.
I can't remember.
There's too much. My memory's gone all hazy over the last couple of years. My brain's turned to mush over the last couple of years, and
as have all of
now,
us.
Now with the MCU, it's we talked about how watching all the shows and stuff feels like homework. It's
what we need. With is it Prime where you pause it?
I was just thinking about that.
On the X-ray.
Yeah, we need an X-ray.
Yeah,
you need a little X-ray with just when you if there's a frame with the Zune, Peter got the Zune in this movie.
I have I've talked about this before, and I forget to mention it sometimes. I think it's called Marvel Legends.
The game?
The video series on Disney.
There's a section of Disney Plus where it has little short recaps of certain characters and movies, and so before the next MCU movie comes out, go on there and it'll show you what happened to this character, what happened to that character, what happened in this movie. I watched it before seeing Guardians the first time, Guardians 3 the first time, at the start of the year, but this time I didn't have time to rewatch it. But they're pretty good. They're like official recaps. And then, of course, you can go on YouTube and watch.
Oh, yeah, 15-minute recaps on YouTube are usually
those are good.
Even better than the official ones.
Yeah, I like those. But also I like about this movie that they didn't try to force Gamora and Peter back together because she's not the same Gamora. She's not the same person. It would have been really stupid if she was just like, I love you again. Yeah. And they would have had to take up an entire movie if they were going to try to get them back together.
That scene between Peter and Nebula where...
I never noticed your eyes.
Yeah, Gamora says, it sounds like you're in love with her. And then he's just silent looking at her. And then she's like, stop it. And then he's like, I never noticed how black your eyes were. I had me in stitches. You know, it's because it's that period of silence where there's like nothing. He's just staring at it. It's
because you can see him like the gears turning.
He's thinking about it.
Oh, I've never thought about it, but I would.
Yeah.
Just hilarious. Nebula's so good. I said to Nathan, what makes Guardians 3 so good is that every character shines. All of their personal stories are like, told to completion, but also the dynamic between all of the characters is so well done.
Yeah.
They really feel like they've been traveling the universe together for years. They like, you know what I mean? It's like you're watching...
Good chemistry.
Good chemistry, yeah. The chemistry is so intense in this film. It's amazing. Even Groot and Rocket's chemistry between the rest of them.
They're like the BFFs.
No, but they're CGI. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It's like even like it just shines. This movie just shines.
I mean, Groot's when he comes like kaiju size.
Oh, I laughed. And
at the end when he's really
he scares them all away, and Peter's like, no, stop it.
And at the end he's like, I love you guys. And like Mantis is hilarious in this movie.
Oh, she's so good.
And all her stuff with Drax.
And we're not just saying that because we're forced to.
What, by her?
By Mantis, yeah.
Oh, she touches like, you love me. Oh, wait, when she touches the guard and it's like, you're madly in love with him.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, how you doing?
I kept expecting the security guard to like get them out of their bind.
That would have been funny if they're like about to die and then he's like, follow me.
Yeah, no. Drax.
He saves Drax, jumps in front of a shot. That would be funny.
And then you could have had a moment of Drax holding his body.
No.
Oh, man.
It's so good. Also, the dance scene at the end, very cathartic.
Yeah.
It's like, even though everyone's like split off and going their own way, and the Guardians is kind of over for now.
It's like that injection of Guardians essence into the end.
Yeah,
so it's like
but it's just like everyone feels like they've accomplished something, and
it's like a moment of relief for the people who stuck through to the end of the film. So it's like, oh look, it's still the Guardians. We're still able to dance to the music. It's not the end, if you will.
Yeah.
Even though, like
like I said before, it's like it's a good end to the trilogy and like this era of the Guardians.
And a tentative new beginning.
But it's also and like you see that with like the mid-credit scene where Rocket leads the new Guardians with Kraglin and Cosmo and Adam Warlock and that little girl that they find on the ship. I forget her name.
Joop.
Yeah, Joop. Hello, Dum Dum. Was he called the kids?
Dum Dums.
Yeah, hello, Dum Dum.
It's stupid.
Hello, stupid.
I thought it was a really nice.
Hello,
touch.
dumb idiot.
I thought it was a really nice touch that they make Drax out to be so dumb and like a problem maker.
Yeah.
But then he has that one moment where he solves the problems and they're like, "Well," he's like, "Why are you surprised?"
And like at the end when Mantis is like, "You're not just supposed to be a destroyer, like you're a dad." Like, and I like that moment. It's just like he's got his revenge. Like he doesn't have to be the dumb, violent guy. He can be nurturing somewhat or whatever. Yeah.
And he knows metaphors.
Lily pad, but her head is like a lily pad. So the only other thing I think I want to talk about. A couple more things. A few more things. Elizabeth Debicki, she's so tall and I love it. And I love that scene where the High Evolutionary needs to step on the little stepper to get up to her level. That's hilarious. But also, I love in Tenet because she's in Tenet. And I love how they just made her so ridiculous. She's already tall, but then they made her costumes accentuate her tallness. And then they put heels on her. And then John David Washington is just normal size. I just love how they didn't try to make them the same.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's ridiculously tall and hilarious and awesome. The other thing I want to mention, this is the first uncensored F-bomb in the MCU.
Yeah.
James Gunn obviously was the one to do it. I thought there was one in Iron Man 3 for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it was like hard to hear or something, and maybe I just remembered it differently. But when he's in the car's like, just open the fucking door.
Yeah,
so funny
because it comes out of left field.
Yeah. And it's like the perfect delivery,
and it's like kind of frustration.
Yeah, it's like that you didn't expect it to come, and it's like so. And then he's like trying to drive, and he's just like, "Oh, I left Earth when I was 8 years old.
Yeah,
I don't know how to drive."
But also, come on, man! Like, it's not that it can't be that complicated. You've been flying spaceships for how long?
Yeah, if you could drive a spaceship, you could probably.
You could wing it. It's like put it in drive, and there's a pedal, man. It's not that difficult.
Like you drive a manual. Come on, man.
Yeah.
No, I said put it in drive. Was it a manual car?
I think it might have been a manual. I don't
Never
remember.
mind. I take it back. It was a manual car.
Yeah. No one can drive a manual.
Alan's not here, so we're in a safe space.
Yeah. They've got the car show going on next door. They
won't understand.
They would rip into us if they heard us talking. You're not a real man. You can't drive stick shift. No. All right, one last thing is when Adam will, again, like the action scenes are really cool in this movie, and there's a bit where that planet, the Counter-Earth, is blowing up, and Adam Warlock is like flying super fast, like through all the explosions, and it's very clear, and you get the sense of the speed, but you still kind of can see what's going on, and you get kind of POV shots of like him going really fast, and then like zooming between the explosions and whatever. It looks awesome, and it makes me excited for James Gunn's Superman, which obviously that in terms of the action, and the flying and the superhero stuff, he'll be good at that.
How much do we know about that Superman? Is it an origin or
it's not an origin? It's like,
are you like a year one, or is it like a...
I don't know.
Is it just Superman already exists? You know Superman.
Look, don't quote me, but I think I've seen it. I've seen someone paraphrase it as being like year 5.
Okay.
I think he's still not like
it's not Endgame. It's not Endgame Superman, but he does have a bit of experience on his belt.
It's not like it's not origin story. It's not year 1, but it's like he's still young.
It's like the same problem we've had with Spider-Man. I don't need the origin story again.
Well, the Superman movie, I should say, is going to be about his Superman's like history, like the family backstory, because that was James Gunn's way. He wanted that way in where he can tell an interesting story that hasn't been done. Yeah, it's going to be like, what does it mean to come from that family? Like
that'll be interesting. Like
apparently that was his way into the script.
Legacy.
Because he didn't want to direct it unless he could find what he calls a way in. Like he needed to have an idea. He needed to have a vision for it, and
sink his teeth into.
And that was what he found. Was like the legacy is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
What does the legacy mean to be Kal-El?
That'll be interesting.
If that makes sense.
Speaking of, a couple months ago, maybe we were talking about something else, and Alan came in and he started talking about My Adventures with Superman, the animated show.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, I heard it's good. I'll watch it, and then we'll talk about it another time. I finished the first season. It's really good. First episode's good, but I wasn't like sold. From the second episode onward, it gets a lot better, and it's got lots of juicy Superman stuff. Once it gets into the lore and the Krypton stuff and the real Superman-y stuff, it's really awesome. But it's also a good show for like newcomers who aren't really into Superman. And it's good for like young kids, but also like older people like can enjoy it too. It's definitely worth checking out. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with James Gunn's DC. Like we've talked about before, I think he'll do a good job, and he knows what he's doing. But I think also the way these types of movies are made and marketed now, they're all going to be of a certain level of artificiality and safeness. But I'm looking forward, especially to Superman, not just, like I said, not just visually, action-wise and sci-fi-wise will he do a good job, but like with Guardians, we know he can do good characters, good jokes, good humor, and also like emotional investment in the characters. And hopefully we'll finally get a good Superman movie, because other than the first one, 1978...
Yeah.
None of them, I mean...
Superman's one of the hardest ones to tackle too.
But that's the thing, is he should be the easiest.
Yeah.
But they always screw it up.
You know the problem is we live in a world where if Superman saves a guy, people be like, politics.
But that's. I mean, we've talked about in other episodes.
He's an illegal immigrant.
Superman doesn't like Donald Trump.
Yeah, we've talked about in other episodes. Is people think Superman is too simple, and so they think he's boring and dull and ugly. But that's because he's always been presented that way in the last few movies. Whereas the comics, the animated shows have always been really good. And I still think the 78 Superman movie is probably one of the best superhero movies ever made. And I think James Gunn will be able to reinvigorate love for Superman, not just among comic book nerds who are like, I love Superman, but like normies who...
I think people imprint on characters, right, what they want. The problem with Superman is he has a fixed moral compass. He does what's right in the right way.
I remember we talked about this. People don't have a problem with Captain America in the MCU, and he's a goody two-shoes.
Because he gets the ha-has. Like, he's part of the Marvel, it's lighter, it's
the I woke up I come from the 40s, it's now 2013.
Maybe, yeah.
But Superman
But I mean, his core character is, I am a good person, I do the right thing.
But as Callum said, that's rooted in...
But people don't find him boring.
in a different time. If you bring Superman it's a bit of both.
No, you can do. He's the Boy Scout.
I think it's just mishandling of Superman by Zack Snyder and the recent DC universe.
I feel like people would call Superman woke, right? Because he has morals and he has.
But they call anything.
No, but Batman has more violence. There's a bit grittier.
He's definitely more of a conservative fascist.
Yeah, yeah.
And as someone who's
easier to sell. It's easier to sell Batman to everyone than it is to sell Superman everyone.
But I just think, like, not even bringing that into it. It's just a lot of people, all they know of Superman is Man of Steel and maybe Superman Returns. And those movies aren't very good. And those versions of Superman aren't good. And so they think of Superman and they kind of roll their eyes and go, oh, he's boring. Yeah. Meanwhile, we've had so many cool Batman interpretations. And so everyone loves Batman. I think James Gunn's Superman will finally be like people going like, oh, cool, Superman's cool again.
I hope so.
You know, and not just nerds like us who are like, well, if you read the comic books and if you watch the animated show.
In issue 79 of Action Comics, he does this. Yeah, he's cool,
like if you watch the animated show, he's actually really cool and he has like a really complex character. Like, and normal people will be able to be like, yeah, cool Superman. And hopefully that'll lead to better DC movies overall. But anyway, I'm rambling now. I'm hungry. Let's go.
Yes, we got to eat before they shut the bistro.
Oh, no. What time do they close?
Like 8:30.
Okay, good. Yeah, we should be okay.
All right, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week with some...
Oh, yes.
More exciting content.
We're going to PAX this week.
If you somehow listen to us... live or on the podcast. Obviously, on the podcast.
Yeah, if you hear this and you're going to PAX on...
Come and say hi.
Any of the days.
Say, hey, I'm a cousin, and we'll give you something special.
Yeah.
We'll give you a sticker maybe or something like that.
And if you happen to be listening and you are actually presenting something at PAX, a game or whatever, hit us up. We'd like to talk to you. But yeah, next week and pretty much almost all of October, we'll be talking about PAX and releasing some interviews and other juicy stuff that we record there. So keep an eye out for that.
It's an exciting time. Mm-hmm. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week. Adios, cousins.